10 years ago. On Friday, November the 13th, 2015, my friend Ryan, Steven, and I went to pick up this, my 2002 BMW M5, and little did I realize the monumental impact that this car would have on my life. And in today's video, we're going to be discussing my ownership experience. We'll talk about my likes and dislikes, how much this car has cost me to own, and then we'll take it out for a drive and discuss my plans for it in the future. Before we get going, no, this M5 is not for sale. I just wanted to take a moment to express my appreciation for all of you. The last video did way better than I was expecting, beyond my wildest expectations. And I'm incredibly grateful to everybody who left a comment, watched the video, or reached out to me in general. I am incredibly humbled by the overwhelming positivity that everybody expressed. It really means a lot. So I wanted to say thank you, and I can't wait to share my automotive experience with all of you. We begin by talking about my likes of my ownership period, and the first thing we have to discuss is the S62 B50 V8 that lies under the hood. Now, generally, I've loved the driving experience of the E39 M5, but there is one aspect of it that stands out way above everything else, and that is the glorious V8 that lies under the hood. And that really is for a couple of reasons. One is the performance that this car offers. This engine produces 394 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. While those aren't monster figures today, they were a lot in period, and honestly, they're still plentiful in this application. More importantly, this engine gives the sensation of speed because of how it delivers its power. Peak torque in this engine is at 3,800 RPM, and it redlines at 7,000, meaning that you have plenty of punch and grunt at low speeds, but as you continue to go up the rev range, well, this engine opens up and produces great horsepower as well. This car also has individual throttle bodies, 8 ITBs, meaning that you have unparalleled throttle precision. The throttle response of the S62 is some of the best I have experienced, and honestly, it doesn't necessarily match the rest of the car. This engine in general is great, but the chassis was designed to be kind of a soft luxury car. It kind of rolls side to side, so the engine really is the rock star. While the rest of the car is nice, I think the S62 is great. The second thing I love about E39 M5 ownership is the community that surrounds this car. Most of my friends, particularly from my East Coast days, actually all met because we loved the E39 M5. Ryan Schultz from E39 Source is my best friend to this day, and well, we both adore this car. He got his M5 as his very first car. His parents are insane, but that started us on this journey with the E39 M5. We realized how special these cars are, how much fun they are to work on, and just how great they are to use. Ryan then started the YouTube channel E39 Source as a platform to discuss how to take care of these cars, and he did an amazing job documenting tons of repairs of these cars over the years, so much so that he then turned that into a brick and mortar business here in San Diego. But along that journey, a lot of people reached out to us and, well, just wanted to meet because we all love these cars and thought similarly. And so this car gave me a huge group of great friends. Luke and Jeff, my friends Nick and Ben and Matt, all had E39 M5s, and crazily enough, most of them still do. This car is infectious, and we just adore these things, and as a result, we have a strong community that surrounds them. In addition to them, there are a lot of enthusiasts who love this car and support it and help keep these things on the road. Adam Bajrak from M5 Board and Peter Party are gurus about taking care of these cars, and it's because of people like them that we are able to keep them on the road. I'm eternally grateful, I'm thrilled they're in the community, and I'm happy that so many people love the E39 M5. The third thing I love about this car is the way it makes me feel. I've owned this car for the past decade, from age 20 to age 30, and over that time, a lot has changed in my life. I finished college, I moved across the country, I've had several jobs, I've had relationships go up and down. Everything in my life is very different from how it was 10 years ago, but one thing remains the same, and it's this car. And while I fully admit the M5 is not perfect, the steering isn't particularly great, the shifter is a little bit rubbery, the chassis kind of is roly-poly, it's not perfect, but it represents home to me. And every single time I interact with it, it brings me joy. There is a feeling in the car community that if when you walk away from your car, you don't turn around to take one more look at it, well, it might be time to move on, or you bought the wrong car. Every time I leave my M5, I always turn around and look at it, and I constantly take pictures of it. I just simply can't get enough of it. It's brought me great memories in the past, and I suspect it will continue to bring me great ones in the future. All right, gushing out of the way, we now have to talk about some of my dislikes with this car. And we're going to begin with a kind of controversial one, and that is build quality. Now, the E39 is a pretty well put together car, but I'm sitting in the rear seats for a very specific reason. This car comes with split folding rear seats, meaning that you can fold these rear seats down and you have a lot more storage space to put things. However, because this car has these seats, it also means that it is constantly squeaking and rattling, and it drives me crazy. The rest of the car is relatively quiet. I still have stock exhaust on this car, so the exhaust noise isn't too pronounced, and the car is pretty refined in general. So when you're driving along in silence, you constantly hear this squeaking and rattling, and it just drives me crazy. Now, of course, I recognize that this is a 24-year-old car, and that's kind of par for the course, but the rest of the car is so well put together, you wouldn't think that this would be the case. And a lot of people complained about these things way back in the day when these cars were very new. So it's just a part of owning an E39 M5 or any E39 with split folding rear seats. But regardless, it's one of the things I like the least about interacting with this car. My second dislike with this car has to do with 3 small letters. And if you've owned one of these, you know what they are. NLA, or no longer available. That's right, I'm talking about part supply to keep this car on the road. BMW Classic, the heritage department at BMW, has long heralded how much they love the E39 M5, but that is not reflected in the part support that they have provided for this car. And that largely has to do with how these things were constructed. Ultimately, BMW doesn't make a lot of the components that are on this car. They contract other companies to build them, and over time, those contracts lapse and those companies might not renew them to continue manufacturing those components. As a result, parts availability dries up and things become NLA, no longer available. Luckily, we have the enthusiast community around this car, and people have independently stepped up to help keep these cars on the road. And it makes it much easier, and I'm very grateful we have them. However, I am very sad that the factory doesn't realize how special these things are and don't make any real effort to keep them on the road. And that brings us to the third dislike I have with this car, and that is my cost of ownership. Now, a year and a half ago, I did a video for Cars and Bids where I talked about how much money I had spent on the M5, and I totaled all of it up and talked about the 3 most expensive years of ownership. And I'll link that video below if you want to go check it out. But all of it is documented here in the book. My entire history of owning this car from start to finish. There are some whoppers when it comes to service bills of this car, but part of that is that parts have become so expensive. Like I talked about, as they become less available and demand either increases or remains the same, well, price goes up. And some services I've actually done twice because I've owned the car for so long. But the second time I had to do them, parts were a lot more expensive than the first time it was done. In that Cars and Bids video, I revealed that at that time I had spent $59,144.66 on maintenance, which, well, hurt to tabulate. I'd never hit the sum function on the spreadsheet that I had for this car, but it certainly hurt to tabulate that up. During the remainder of that year, I would spend another $723 on tires and a couple of other components I installed in the car just to make sure that everything was taken care of. But this year, I started with a very specific goal. I wanted to spend no more than $2,000 on maintenance over the course of the year. So how have I done with that? Well, we started the year with a visit to E39 Source to replace the valve cover gaskets. Now, they had been replaced previously, but unfortunately they weren't installed quite correctly, and so they started to leak. Ryan very kindly warrantied that work for me, so it didn't cost me anything. However, while we were replacing those, we noticed there were some components in the plenum system that needed to be replaced. Specifically, some gaskets were cracking and stuff that was just looking old. We also noticed that the vanos cover was leaking a little bit, so we wanted to address that as well. We resealed all of that and ended up replacing the thermostat too, and that total came to $837.55. So a lot of that really had to do more with labor and the sheer amount of time that it took. The parts actually weren't that expensive, but that's how we started the year. The next thing I did was relatively simple. The valve stem caps on this car had started to crack, and one of them actually fell off, so I replaced all of those with BMW roundels. That cost $27.80. The next thing I did was take this car to Elite Finish, a detailing shop here in San Diego run by my friend Kevin, and I actually addressed some cosmetic things with this car, which is not something I really do all that often. Most of the money I've spent on this car has been with mechanical stuff, not really cosmetic, so it's rare that I do this. But I took it to him for a window tint, and we addressed the door handles, which had peeling clear coat on them. We also did a little bit of PDR and some light paint touch-up, and my friends actually gave me a gift card for this for my 30th birthday. So I used that gift card toward this, and then I paid the difference on top. The difference I had paid was $192.83 out of pocket to have this done, and the car looks a lot better. I also did a paint correction myself this summer and put 2 coats of ceramic coating on it, so it looks really nice now. Presents nicely for a car with the mileage that it has, and I'm very happy with that. The last 2 things I did to the car so far this year had to do with really just miscellaneous parts and stuff that I wanted to have around. I bought a case of Castrol Edge Supercar 10W60 just to have for top-ups. I replaced the wiper blade set with stuff from Bosch, and I replaced the kidney grills on the front of this car. One of them was cracked, so I replaced the right side kidney grill as it was just due for it. That total came to $231.99. And then I ordered a couple more components recently. I ordered the power steering reservoir bushings, as they tend to sag and puke power steering fluid all over your air boxes. So I ordered those, replaced those, not a problem since. And I ordered fog light bulbs as one of them had died. I had one in spare, but I wanted to replenish, so I replenished. The total for that came to $58.28. And that means that so far this year, I've spent $1,348.45, well below the $2,000 threshold that I was shooting for. And in totality, the entire expense of this car, with the exception of gas and insurance, comes to $61,216.82. Now that is a lot of money, but you have to keep another thing in perspective. In addition to having owned this car for 10 years, I've also added quite a few miles. I bought it with 158,779 miles, and it currently has 253,431 miles on the odometer, meaning that I've covered 94,652 miles during my ownership. And if you do the math of the total cost over the mileage, it comes to about 65 cents per mile it has cost me to own and operate my M5. Now, ultimately, as I've tallied this up, I really don't hold any resentment against this car. A lot of people like to say, well, why didn't you buy a CT5V Blackwing instead? Well, that car didn't exist 10 years ago. And if I bought a CT5V, added that number of miles on it, I'd have to suffer both depreciation and a maintenance cost inevitably with it when it ran out of warranty. But ultimately, life is short, and I wanted to have the experience of driving an M5 for that period of time, and well, it hasn't let me down. I love driving this car. It's one of my favorite things. My goal with it has always been that I should be able to get in the car, turn the key, and drive pretty much anywhere. And I could confidently say that I feel that way about the car today. It is rock solid, and I could drive it from coast to coast if I wanted to. But that's all in the past now. So let's get behind the wheel, take this thing for a drive, and I can tell you what I plan to do with it in the future. All right, plans for the future. Well, the main one is, I just want to keep driving this car. It comes as a surprise to nobody, but I plan on keeping the M5 in my life in the future. I really don't see a situation where I sell this car unless I just physically can't drive it anymore. Realistically, I just love having the car around. I've also never said that I intend to keep this car forever, despite maintaining it the way that I have. So I just don't see it. Maybe it happens, but I just really enjoy the car. I don't feel that my journey is complete with it. I really like having, like I mentioned, the sense of home that it provides for me. And, ultimately it's a very usable, practical car. I can still carry people in it. It just fits in my life really well. And so I don't see it actually going anywhere, and that's one of my main plans for it in the future. Another big plan I have for this car, though, is when it comes to using it, I'd like to use it on more road trips. I realized when I was driving to Monterey this summer, I really don't use it that way, and that's kind of what it's best at. It's great for wide open highway use, long distance, covering miles at speed and comfort and refinement. That's the M5 rules at that. That's what all M5s are good at. And so I really would like to use it more in that capacity. I've lived in California for 5.5, almost coming up on 6 years now, actually, as I think about it. So I would like to explore more of California from behind the wheel of my M5, go do some fun stuff with it, take it to Yosemite. I've never been there. I've never been to a lot of parts of California, outside of San Diego, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. So I'd love the opportunity to see all of that from behind the wheel of one of my favorite cars. On the topic of how I use the M5, one thing I would like to start to consider is potentially retiring it from daily use. Like I mentioned, this car is really expensive to take care of and a lot of parts are no longer available. So if something did happen to this car, I am really nervous about what it would take to create this experience again. Some people would say, well, maybe that's the sign you've had the experience and you should give it up, but I don't really want to. I love this car and I'd like to continue to have the experience, so I likely would replace it with another E39 M5, and that would be hard to find one as nice as this, or find one that has the parts that are refreshed like this one does, that drives the way it's supposed to. I know what an M5 is supposed to feel like now, and a lot of the ones I drive simply don't feel as tight and as good as this one does, so that would be a real consideration for me. There are a lot of situations where it actually makes me nervous using this car, and I don't really want to feel that way necessarily. So the idea of potentially considering another daily to take up the boring, mundane use of this car is kind of appealing to me. So it's something I'm considering for the future, which means that if this car does get retired to secondary use, I would potentially maybe consider a modification or two to enhance the driving experience. Namely, I would consider an exhaust change of some kind with this car. I like the Rogue Engineering resonated X-pipe setup with the Eisenman race cans. I think that setup is really nice, and my friend Ryan, my friend Luke, they both have that setup, and it sounds so angry and disgruntled at low speed, but when you get up the RPMs, kind of a high-pitched tone comes into it too. It just sounds awesome, and I could certainly see maybe doing that in the future. Not saying I will, but I could see the potential of some fun little changes like that just to make it a little bit more fun to use as a secondary car. Another thing I would like to do has to do with some refreshing of this car. Now, there are some flaws on the outside, namely there's this big dent on the rocker panel that's bothered me. I personally did that one. I was reversing the car out of Ryan's shop. He wasn't there, I was in a hurry, and I clipped one of the arms on a lift, and so I got this nice gash along the side of the car, which it really bothers me, and I'd love to have that remedied at some point. But while you're doing that, you're mixing paint, you might as well do other stuff, and then I fall into the trap of wanting to repaint just the front, and that's like, well, then maybe I'd do more of the car, and then you end up repainting the whole thing, and then I end up with a car that's cosmetically perfect that I don't want to use, but has 253,000 miles on it. That's pointless. So the whole purpose of this one is to drive and use and enjoy it. And so that's why I've been hesitant to even approach anything in terms of exterior cosmetics of refreshing that. But I would consider doing that in the future. There are some interior things that do need to be refreshed. The driver's seat, for instance, has a split that has formed on one of the seams. I want to do that before it gets any worse, so I plan on doing that relatively soon. That should be a relatively easy fix. But the seat maybe could also use a slight refresh. You sand down the leather, maybe re-dye some of it just to make it look nicer. But then again, you start to the scope creep comes in. It's like, well, I do that one. Should I do the passenger side one? I don't know. So I might just do the repair and call it quits. That might be sufficient for me. Regardless, I do just want to continue to use this car and create fun memories with it. It's just the best. And even if that means I'm not maybe driving it every day anymore, I still think that means I can maximize the fun and the use of this through taking it to events, letting my friends drive it. They're all really hesitant to do so because they know how much this car means to me. But I just want to continue to experience the car, let others experience it, and just make great memories with it. Although I get made fun of a lot for how much I love this car, I just think that if something brings you the level of joy that this car brings me, that you should keep it around. And yes, it's expensive to take care of. Yes, it's getting harder to take care of, but ultimately, I don't love it any less. I think the car is just so suited to who I am. It has scaled up with my lifestyles as I've gotten older, and I suspect it will continue to do so. There have been times when I've considered getting rid of it, but ultimately, I just come back to it because it's home to me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will talk to you very soon. Goodbye. Oh, God, this car rules. Oh, good car. Good car.